Alright, we are back with a new video, and we are continuing with this series of reviewing new episodes of Owl House. Today, we got Edge of the World, which gives us more of King's daddy issues, and some more context on what the endgame might be for the series. Oh, you thought we were getting a breather episode this week? Well, we ain't got time for that. We're sprinting to the finish line, full steam ahead. To some extent, this episode felt necessary, as King hasn't really been focused on much in the post-hiatus stretch, so it was about time we got to check in. And sure enough, he once again leaves this episode feeling sad and disappointed that everything about his existence is bad. So we open the episode with a dream sequence of King finally meeting his dad, or as he calls him, King of Dads, and he even has some siblings as well. And I found it amusing how the dad in this dream sequence is the same size as King, probably signifying that King is so confused about what he is, or who he is, that the only point of reference is himself. And it was a pretty nice scene with everything feeling nice and wholesome. Right before they eat, King gets to say grace, and he says how he feels all this is a dream, prompting him to wake up feeling sad. Obviously, this was a neat way of setting up that this would be a King episode, but first, we have to attend to Luce. It turns out that Luce hadn't told them what happened yet. I actually expected this episode to open with Luce being like, and that's what happened, and then cutting to everyone's reactions. But as it turns out, Luce was so troubled by all this that she couldn't talk right away. But then she does, and luckily we don't have to waste too much time recapping the previous episode's events. We do get some previous flashbacks, but as expected, not much time is lost here. And obviously along the way, Lilith shows up as well, where she has received the news about what the Day of Unity is, and considering she was once in the Emperor's Coven, she feels quite sorry for herself, thinking she's an idiot for being an enabler for her own demise. She also mentions that the Day of Unity is only 1 week away, giving some urgency to all this. But Ida reminds her that no pity parties are allowed in the house. Anywho, Hootie gets pretty excited to see Lulu and proceeds to cough up a bunch of stuff he ate, one of which being a letter sent to King, really showing how helpful he is. So King opens the letter, and it's an invitation to a far-off island run by warriors claiming that they can teach him who or what he's supposed to be. Ida's against him going, saying that Bellows will be looking for Luce after finding out the truth and thinks she needs to hide, but Lilith thinks they should go on the journey, saying it'll be effectively make them hard for Bellows to find, while also potentially being productive in stopping the Day of Unity, assuming these warriors are willing to fight against Bellows. So the gang heads off, and we immediately see Ida breaking her own rule by having a pity party. She blames herself for letting Luce stay in the Boiling Isles and getting tangled up in Bellows' business. Lilith does a decent job accompanying her, but I find it funny how just minutes earlier, Ida was grilling her sister for having a pity party. Anywho, Luce, King, and Hootie go on the journey with the help of the pirates Luce worked out for on separate tides. This is an interesting scene to cut through after hearing Ida blaming herself for hurting Luce, when Luce was working with these pirates after blaming herself for hurting Ida and making her unable to afford her apple blood because she's worried about what she needs to eat. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But they get to this island and they use a special portal to get into the realm. It's there that they meet Tarek, a large fellow that seemingly looks like the same species as King. While he says up front that he's not King's father, he welcomes him and the gang into the village run by other demon-looking individuals that call themselves Titan Trappers. And it was around this point in the episode where I started wondering if these guys were truly be evil. Because on one hand, it would certainly make sense for them to be so, and sure enough, they do end up being evil. But also given the fact that they did a similar thing just a few episodes ago and Elsewhere and Elsewhen, I wonder whether they would even do the same thing twice in a short span of time. Though I think interestingly, this whole reveal kind of makes Hootie very useful again, like in the sense that he ate the letter, and had he not coughed it up, they would have never gotten the letter, they would never have gotten into this mess in the first place. So I guess Hootie's useful, although indirectly. So they spend some time there, and obviously King gets pretty excited to learn the ways of the Titan Trappers, while Luce and Hootie were sent out to speak with Bill. Interesting reference, by the way. It was this separation that furthered my suspicion that the Trappers would be evil, and the conflict would be King not believing them, as these Trappers feel like family, which makes him happy. Sure enough, they end up meeting Bill, who ends up explaining the whole scheme. Again, it's not entirely spelled out, but basically what we learn is that they've been hunting Titans with the hope that it would release the Collector from his prison, and essentially it turns out that King is the last Titan. So not only do we learn that King is a Titan, but that he is the last of his kind, and that he is somehow a key to the Collector being powerful. And with Belos being interested in the Collector's business, that means the King dying would be bad. So Lucen, Hooty try to get King to escape, but things go downhill. We see Tarak try to kill King, who has no idea what's happening, only for Luce to stop them. And at first, King is confused, saying that he sees these folks as his family, but before long, all is revealed. Not only do these trappers want King dead and want the Collector free, they're not even demons at all. They're all regular old witches that simply disguise themselves as Titans, presumably to make it easier to lure them in. Naturally, this makes King very sad, but first they need to escape. They're able to do so largely through King destroying the island by using his sonic boom roar, which Hooty helped him learn and knock at Hooty's door, again showing how useful Hooty is. And then, as they're looking at the ruins, King looks at Luce and is like, I want to go home. And so they do, with the realization that more needs to be done to solve this Day of Unity business. Oh, and it ends with a cliffhanger of Belos' guards approaching the Owl House, supposedly to capture Luce. On the whole, this was a pretty good episode. While I don't think it's quite as good as Howl of Mind, I think it still effectively moves the story forward while continuing to provide some juicy character stuff. As I said with Echoes of the Past, I think Alice Hurst does an amazing job making you feel bad for King. I think that really shines through in the dream sequence at the beginning and at the end when he tells Luce he wants to go home. Now there are still some questions on whether Belos is aware of this clan of Titan hunters and what the Collector really is. If I had to guess, I think this episode solidified to me that Belos will merely become a secondary villain by the end of it, while the Collector will emerge as the true biggest threat. I can see a betrayal happening once a Day of Unity happens, where the Collector betrays Belos and then really shows his true colors, which should set things up nicely for the 3 specials. So that's something at least. But on the whole, this episode is pretty good. Now in terms of the ranking, I haven't fully solidified this episode's spot yet, though I think high 10s is probably where it fits, most likely where Keeping Up Appearances is. So there we go. That will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And like I said, I'll be back next week to cover the next episode of Owl House, so stay tuned for that. But for now, that is the video. See ya.